certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators.
And you're talking about Donald Trump. Maybe open your eyes and take in what's happening on the American left in this country. Those are the Hitlers I'm worried about.
Want to know what happens when you combine a former president, terrible historical takes, and a complete lack of self-awareness? Trump just praised Hitler, and no, this isn't a bad SNL sketch. This is real life, folks. In the next few minutes, we'll show you exactly what Trump said, why his former chief of staff is facepalming harder than Captain Picard, and why this might be the most Trump thing Trump has ever trumped. Return to the year 1987. At the Berlin Wall, Ronald Reagan yelled out, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." His words reverberated through the years. It's ironic that presidents used to be expected to publicly oppose authoritarian governments rather than gushing over them. The presidential Hitler praise counter in the corner is now at 29,200 days. As shown by the ding, it's impressive how many days presidents have avoided endorsing genocidal rulers. Yeah, it's quite low, but evidently some people think it's too high. George H.W. Bush, on the other hand, took a very serious stance against intolerance and the need to never forget what happened in 1993 during his visit to the Holocaust Memorial Museum. Things like keeping in mind that Nazis are evil are standard fare for presidents. No signs of Hitler appreciation yet, but the counter continues going up. In 2016, President Obama visited Auschwitz to do the usual presidential things, denounce bigotry, reflect on the Holocaust's atrocities, and, well, find nothing good to say about Adolf Hitler. US leaders should not align themselves with fascist ideology, as if there were some strange unspoken taboo about it. Radical, isn't it? The number keeps going up. It made no difference which party was in power. They appeared to be in complete agreement on the absurd idea that we should probably not praise the Holocaust's mastermind. Politicians that disagree on lunch topics might unite on the common Nazis are bad stance. After then, it will be as expected. Our number quickly returns to zero, just as quickly as Trump can remark very fine people on both sides. We finally break our trend of 29,200 days of presidents failing to compliment Hitler. Shut down, destroyed counter, score destroyed. The match has ended. Here we are in a strange parallel universe where an ex-president of the United States believes that Hitler did some good things. I suppose praising Hitler is certainly distinctive when you're attempting to distinguish yourself from other leaders.
As a retired Marine general is saying that the person he served meets the definition of a fascist.
Here we are, albeit certainly not the type of distinctiveness anyone had hoped for. In keeping with our favorite would-be dictator, let's have a look at his thoughts on his historical idol. Listen to someone who had to hear Trump's Hitler statements firsthand while our calculator is still burning from that reset. It's surprising that John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, wore a mask during these discussions. It's safe to assume that in order to capture those expressions, we required new animation software. So just what was Trump's statement? Kelly claims that Trump said Hitler did some good things too.
You know, that Hitler did some good things too. And of course, if you know history, again, I think he's lacking in that.
Now, this is all coming as Kelly, during these interviews, is also confirming reports that Trump has made admiring statements about Hitler.
This is a direct quotation from Trump, in case you were wondering. And this wasn't an isolated incident of carelessness. Kelly's jaw drops to the floor in animated form. Kelly claims that Trump said these things more than once. For some reason, repeating it wasn't humiliating enough. Let us now recall John Kelly's identity. This isn't about some random individual who saw Trump at Mar-a-Lago or some random Twitter user. This former chief of staff for President Trump is a 4-star Marine general. Symphony of praise. His words have slightly more weight than your uncle's Facebook status updates. Be patient, things will improve. Why can't you be like the German generals? Trump said of Kelly, who attempted to clarify that glorifying Hitler might not be the most presidentially appropriate move.
Area, certainly an authoritarian, admires people who are dictators.
It's more than far. The line has been crossed. You are over there and the line is behind you.
A query that triggered Trump's galactic brain. Kelly proceeded to clarify that in reality, numerous German generals conspired against Hitler, causing cartoon question marks to appear. Think about it. You're a senior military officer in the nation, and you're tasked with teaching the president a refresher course in World War II. Kelly standing at a chalkboard, steam escaping his ears. According to Kelly, if you knew what history Hitler was all about from the beginning to the end, everything he did was in support of his racist, fascist life philosophy.
Support of his racist, fascist life,
You're trying to drop this here at the end, and there will be people who don't believe it. There will be people who refute it, and Donald Trump himself also refutes it.
In military terms, that means, are you kidding me right now? In an effort to enlighten Trump, Kelly stated that it is pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good. However, Trump would often simply finish these chats by stopping. Trump's brain stuttering. This is like your grandpa trying to set up the DVR but giving up halfway through. Sure enough, Trump's inner circle is busily engaging in their trademark tactic, calling everything fake news. But the receipts are with Kelly, you know. It's like he's dropping sizzling mixtapes of particular quotations and facts. Echo of a dropped microphone. Do you recall the days when Republican Party officials would vie to be the first to harshly denounce the Nazis? As if that weren't terrible enough, they're now attempting to explain why Hitler did good things and the most politically awkward dance ever. This is, folks, mental gymnastics at an Olympic level. Your insert laugh track here. The originality of these replies is admirable. As if playing a particularly political game of Twister, Republican leaders are evading inquiries over Trump's Hitler statements. The left foot is firmly planted on no comment, while the right hand is firmly planted on what about inflation? And somehow they manage to bury their faces in the sand. The same people who were raving about how much they despise the Nazis are now showing signs of unexplained selective amnesia. Their impassioned addresses against extremism and intolerance occupy the left side of the split screen. Right now, we can see them turning into human pretzels as they attempt to sidestep the question of whether or not it would be a good idea to praise Hitler.
Could argue was good. It was certainly not done for the right reason. But he would occasionally say that.
Even while many have drawn parallels between Trump and Hitler, Jimmy Kimmel notes that the two leaders are very different. The woman Hitler was married to adored him.
I know a lot of people have been comparing Trump to Hitler lately, but there's some major differences between. For instance, Hitler was married to a woman who loved him.
But hold on a second, there's more. Here's the contact information for these politicians. Trump thinks Frederick Douglass is alive and doing an amazing job. He thinks Lincoln invented the town car.
He thinks Lincoln invented the town car, okay? So he isn't echoing Nazi terminology. He's coming up with it all on his own. You'd have to read, okay? You'd have to have some basic knowledge of history. Trump thinks Frederick Douglass is alive and doing an amazing job.
Question marks appear in cartoon form. The rationalizations are becoming increasingly sound. The whole thing is like sitting through a talent show in elementary school, where the students just keep making up wild excuses for why they didn't complete their assignments. But these aren't little children. They are elected officials who, sometime between 2016 and now, seem to have lost all sense of decency. Saying, they're poisoning the blood of our country, it's sick, it's wrong. Kimmel absolutely gets it. The moral bankruptcy isn't all bad though, at least it's entertaining. The laughter track begins playing once more. Seeing the clowns in suits and ties instead of their traditional red noses is like being a spectator at a circus. The level of absurd justifications has risen to an unprecedented level, making one question whether we are residing in a parallel universe where fundamental historical facts are no longer required.
And you're talking about Donald Trump, maybe open your eyes and take in what's happening on the American left in this country. So those are the Hitlers I'm worried about.
He has said that. So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist.
This is the same group that once passionately spoke out against dictatorship, but today they treat Hitler did good things like any other offbeat comment from their eccentric leader. Even if Republicans are engrossed with researching milk costs, John Kelly, who was Trump's chief of staff, is sounding a far more significant alarm. Look up from your supermarket receipts when a military general who dealt directly with Trump says he certainly falls into the general definition of a fascist. Now is the moment to act responsibly. A cartoon inventory pops up.
But if you know what Hitler was all about, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument that he did anything good.
To Mr. Kelly, that if he's worried about Hitler and he's worried about fascism, he ought to pick up the newspaper. There's thousands of Hitlers
What makes Kelly's fascism field guide so intriguing? How about we dissect it? Trump says our 4-star general acquaintance is squarely in the far-right area. And he doesn't mean that in a positive, I really like tax cuts type of manner. We're talking extreme authoritarianism here, with the worrying tendency to gush for tyrants. He seems to be amassing a collection of cards featuring autocrats. Hold just a second, I have more. Analog signal for a check mark. According to reports, former Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Mark Milley became so worried that he also began using the F word. No, I don't mean that one. Fascist, you should probably pay notice when your 2 top military advisors start using terminology that is more often seen in historical texts.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, who was handpicked by Donald Trump, has also called him a fascist in private.
Regular ruler materializes. As Kelly paints a picture of Trump's possible return to power, his warning becomes ever more venomous. Imagine this: a centralized dictatorship, yes, militarism, yes again, and the violent suppression of any dissenting voice, yes, 3 times with a side of oh no, almost as if he were following a how to democracy tutorial. The worst part is that Kelly had to tell Trump over and over again that it wasn't right to use the military against American citizens. Cartoon facepalm. Picture being in the position of having to inform the US president. No sir, you can't just send tanks after people you don't like. The Constitution does not contain that. Not even on Twitter, no. Not even a little. The laugh track needs to pause for a moment now though, since the serious music is about to begin. Kelly is not merely being provocative, he is alerting us of a potential threat to the very foundations of American democracy. Talking about Trump's possible comeback to power, he isn't narrating your typical political differences about infrastructure or tax policies. What he has in mind is an open threat to democracy and the rule of law.